You already know I am so excited because it's that time and we're doing a special recording today. And you will view this replay on Wednesday at our regularly scheduled time, which is 11 a.m. Pacific time. I am beyond ecstatic. I am beyond excited. And so it's that time for Ready, Set, Real Estate. And I have a special guest for you today. I'm so giddy, you guys. I am so giddy. But we're going to do something very new today. And I'm really excited to do this. And I'm introducing to you my guest, Mateen Abdullah, land developer and managing director of Rakiyah Homes. Mateen, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I want to just do a sound check. If someone who's listening, I see one of our sponsors, and let me shout out to Thelonious C. Jones, real estate investor, the solutionist, and our sponsor of today's show is on. And if you would just drop a say hi, hello, that you can hear Mateen. Mateen, let's sound check real quick because we have you on voice, and we just want to make sure they can hear you. Just say hi, hello, introduce yourself in terms of where you're based, and we'll roll right in.
How you guys doing? Mateen Abdullah, land developer, managing director of Rakiyah Homes LLC. I'm located in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
Very good. DC is in the building, and I'm so excited for people to really understand what's happening with this show. We're connected with people from everywhere, which is really nice. And so DC is here. I know I have a few folks and family that's in your locale. So I'm excited about that. So I wanted to just get into some terms, some logistics, blueprints of land development. What is land development? And we're going to bring this to very, very basic level, Mateen, because what you're doing is awesome, and I'm excited about that. And I just want to hear people hear just the process, the mindset, and I think the level of creativity and ambition that it requires to develop real estate. So what is land development?
So land development is very different. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely.
So land development is very different than doing flips and rehabs. It's a lot harder and a lot more comprehensive. And it's the portion of real estate that a lot of people don't want to get involved with, except for your major corporations. So land development, a big aspect of it is civil engineering. So I never knew very much about civil engineering until I got into the business. So the civil engineer is the actual land developer. The developer himself is like a project manager. So the developer himself is like a project manager, and they oversee the entire project. They put the deal together, they work out all the legality issues, and they also are the ones that actually will do like bids and stuff like that for contracts. So the developer is pretty much like a producer on a movie. So what happens is the developer hires the architect, he hires the civil engineer, and depending on how he want to do it, he might tell the architect, hey, you hire the civil engineer, or he might say to the civil engineer, hey, you go hire the architect. So the architect is to guide all the other engineers. So all the other engineers are supposed to work under the direction of the architect, but all of them together, they all answer to the developer. So the developer will tell both of them how many houses he wants to build, or if it's residential or commercial, and he'll tell them specific details about the property. So, for example, when we sit down with the civil engineer and the architect, we'll say we want to do hypothetically 60 townhouses. They'll say what size lot, how many levels, how many bedrooms, how many baths, and how much parking. Is it going to be a 2-car garage for the house, or is it going to be a 1-car garage? Now, if it's a commercial property, if we're doing a store or retail space, the county will have a regulation as far as how many parking spaces. So the beginning of this, when it comes to land development, is you look at raw land, and the civil engineer is there as a land developer. So we look at raw why raw land can look intriguing, especially if it's in a prime location. It can be right next to the White House, but because it's there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's any good. So it's just like buying a house, but a little different. When you buy a house from someone, if you're not buying it as is, the bank is going to make you do an inspection, and they will also mandate that you do an appraisal. So you don't put a contract on land without asking for, instead of using the word inspection, you use the word feasibility study.
Say that again. Hold on. Let me just say this, you guys. I'm like master student right now. I'm taking this in. This is a very, like I said, special segment when we are talking about land development. This is another level. What we do, and Mateen is going to talk about this, the product, and to hear what we sell in terms of property and then to a personal homeowner as a home. The land developer is looking at it as a product. So you said instead of ordering what we know to be as an inspection or a home inspection, a property inspection, land developers, the civil engineer, project managers, architects, you guys in that arena use the term, what is it called?
Feasibility study.
Feasibility study.
Correct. And when you make the contract, you don't use a regular residential contract, you use a land contract in your state. The land contract will have details that the developer will need. So it'll mention soil testing, feasibility study, you'll have those things on there. At the end of the contract, you make a contingency box. So in that contingency box, what you would say is, for example, when you're buying a house, you say this offer is contingent upon an inspection, an appraisal, and if the inspection comes back with termites or you got flood or mold or something, you can back out and get your earnest deposit back. So same thing with the land. You'll say this offer is contingent upon a feasibility study, and then you'll make an addendum in the box at the bottom, and you will say we have the right to do a soil testing, environmental testing, and we'll bring engineers and construction personnel on the property for planning. And then, also you'll be specific. So you'll say, in the event that the land cannot be built on, then the buyer can receive his deposit back. With land, you got to be very careful. So if you have an owner who's trying to rush you to the settlement or wants you to buy the land without inspecting it first, hit the pause button immediately. Or if you run into an owner of the land who says, yes, I'll give this contract, or I'll accept your offer, but I want your deposit to be non-refundable on the first day, hit the pause button.
Okay.
A lot of times, some of the owners, they'll know, especially if they had the land for 20 years and they had other offers that fell through, sometimes there's an issue with the land.
Okay, so they've been privy.
And when there's an issue with,
yeah, I was going to say, so they've been privy to possible issues. So Mateen is saying when we're talking about contingencies on land contracts and an offer, to buyer beware, developer beware, when the seller says they want a non-refundable deposit within 1 day.
Either first day or very quick, in a very quick manner.
So basically trying to lock you in, lock in some money, without giving you a reasonable due diligence inspection period.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, because a lot of times, by the Maryland law, I can speak for every state, they're supposed to give you any disclosures that they know of the land to be any issues. So I give you guys an example. There's a shopping town center here, and there was a piece of land I wanted to purchase it, and we were going to do approximately 60 townhomes. However, the land was no good. 80% of the land was wetland. So the definition of a wetland is either there's like a water source right underneath the soil, or there's a life form or an organism. It could be a frog, it could be some kind of insect, it could be something that the county has deemed or the state has deemed they don't want you to disturb that habitat. So also when it's wetland, you cannot build on it. So there is a way to get around that, which is you have to get a specialized civil a special type of gravel and dirt and fill it in. And you go through inspection, you go through county approval. It's a long, drawn-out process, usually not worth the money. However, the owner knew that 80% of it was wetland, and he tried to sell it to me without disclosing it, but we were able to discover it before we lost too much money on the deal. In addition, his subdivision plans that he was advertising had vacant land, but when we went in person to see the land had houses built on it. So his subdivision plans were a lie. So when it comes to land, you want to be very careful. You want to do your due diligence. You want to cross all your dots. You want to make sure that you're prepared, and also work with what they call either a real estate attorney or a land use or zoning attorney, because these deals can become very, very complicated. In many cases, the owners of the land are truthful people, and they just want to get rid of it and want to sell it. Again, if you want to check it out, you want to do your due diligence. For example, I got a call about a month ago from a real estate agent. They emailed me and they said, we have some land in a very up-and-coming area. I said, how many lots? So each lot equals one house. They said 5 lots. I said, how much is the price of the land? They said $50,000. I thought to myself, it could be too good to be true, but we make no assumptions till we check it out, because sometimes they might need the money, they want to sell the land quickly and move on and do whatever they want to do with the money. So in this case, we looked at it, and yeah, it was 5 lots. That was true. However, one of the lots was in an area where it had no road accessible to that lot, which means in order for us to build a house, we had to put a road in. And by the time we put the road in, the project goes into a negative, because it's only for one house. If it was 15 houses, it's a different story. However, the other lots, they weren't all connected. One of the lots was across the street. And in order to build 2 houses, we had to put these 5 lots all together. And if one lot is across the street and if one house is across the street from the other, we cannot combine those lots to build the house on. So the deal, we backed out.
Got it.
So when it comes to land development, it's something you have to be very careful, and you want to work with a civil engineer that you trust, you can rely on, who has good, solid judgment, and who's also certified, state certified, because he's going to have to stamp your drawings. So to go back to the essence of land development, so no one's confused, I know we're kind of
I love it. I love it. Yes, I'm enjoying it, because I'm actually just throwing in some notes in here for people. And as you go through, now that you recap, because some of the things you talked about with civil engineers, land use or zoning attorneys, real estate attorneys, and these are titles and terms that I want people to hear. I want people to really kind of lock in their mind as they are moving in the direction of blueprints and developing land and dealing with contingencies and protecting themselves with those clauses. And it's interesting to hear that also. I think the phrase, my partner and I, we joke about this. He says, I've got a swamp land I can sell you. So as I hear you talk about just buyer beware in terms of land that you say is, you referred to it as wet, or what was it?
It can have a building restriction. It can have, when it comes to land, it can have several contingencies. They can have several components that can stop you from being able to build on it.
Got it.
So you have a couple. Yeah, so it can be a couple. It can go. I'll give you a couple examples. I'll share with you some stories that are teachable moments, and I'll share with you some stories that are positive.
Okay, so great, because I wanted to make sure that we touched on like learning curves as you're sharing the teachable moments, because this is what the nature of the platform is so that we can learn from the oopsies along the way. And so, yes, please delve in, and then we want to hear the positive stories and what's new with Rakiyah Homes in terms of the luxury line that you shared is coming, and then we'll talk about offering the option of affordable housing. So what are those learning curve moments?
Okay, so for example, there was was a piece of land I got really excited about, and I didn't do the due diligence before I submitted the offer for the contract. Once we submitted the offer of the contract, then the civil engineer got involved, and we discovered that it had a pond that was about 70 feet long, and I'm not sure how deep it was. It was about 70 feet long, about 5 feet wide, maybe 10 feet wide. And where that pond was located, my road was going to have to go there. So we could do a road that was adjacent to the pond, but if someone is drunk, then they take a risk of driving into that pond. So we're going to have to build a retaining wall around that wall, which increases the budget. We had to do that for safety reasons.
Right.
However, because that pond was there, it was subtracting from the number of houses I could build on that land. In addition to that, the land also had it had dips, it had hills in it. It was a 5-acre lot, but you could only build 2 houses, which is bad. So we have something like that means that there's an issue. So the land also had hills that just dropped, where there's hills and curves, or not curves, if there's hills, there's like a cliff that can hinder you from having houses you can build. So what we did was we were going to have to use a retaining wall to get more houses, which ends up being a longer process and more county approval. And we have to do what they call a rezoning. Zoning says how many houses you can or cannot build. So the first thing we did was my first issue is the pond. The pond is taking up a lot of space. So we went to the Maryland EPA, and we made a request to drain that pond and fill it. Maryland EPA said no. And at that point, with all the other restrictions in it, the deal was off. But we were able to get our money back because we had the word contingency and we had the feasibility study as one of the choices in the contract for us to get our deposit back if the study came back with negative results. So we put in the contract, we did a feasibility study, and we list different things that we have the right to do. Boundary survey. There's other surveys that the engineer does called a topographic survey. We'll talk about that in a second. So looking back, that was a while ago, but looking back, before I got into the deal, I should have asked the civil engineer to do a preliminary check on it to see if the land was in good condition. Also, the land had another issue. It had a stream underground, and that stream ran from Maryland all the way to a water source in D.C. And because it had that stream under the soil, you could not build any more houses or parking or any kind of road where that was at. So it was a very complicated lot. Very complicated.
Right.
So what we do now is, before we even make offers, the civil engineer will do a preliminary check on it, and if the land is good, then we move forward and we make the contract. If the land is complicated, then we hold off. So I'll give you an example. One of the projects we're working on now that we haven't totally engaged in is, it's like this. Imagine going to a dead end. And when you go into a dead end, you walk all the way to the very back, you look out into the woods. Someone more likely owns that, either that or the state or the county owns it. So in this case here, there's several owners that own lots, but the lots are off into the woods. And in order to build a house to go back there, we would have to extend the road, which can be very expensive. So what we did was we said, okay, look, this isn't going to be worth the headache and the money to build 2 houses to extend the road. So what we did was, I came with the idea to say, how can we make this profitable for us? So what we did was we sent out letters to the 6 other owners who all own land in that wooded area where there's no road, asking if they want to sell the land so we can build more houses. If they say yes, now the deal is back on the table, where now the deal is potentially profitable for us, depending on how much we purchase these other parcels for.
Got it.
So sometimes there could be something complicated, but sometimes it's putting the pieces to the puzzle, and then the developer makes the determine from an analytical standpoint if the deal is profitable, if it's feasible for them. So to go back to the beginning parts of development, it starts like this, where a developer it's like a visionary. He has an idea in his mind to look at a piece of land that's dirty and filthy. People throwing trash in there, walk their dogs, and let the dogs use the bathroom on the land, and no one cares about it. It looks horrific.
Right.
To be able to look at that and see how will this land look once we develop it? How beautiful can it be enhanced to once we actually develop it? So once they clear the trees up, once they clear the land and put the roads in and do the grass and lay the foundation down, that's when reality starts to kick in. So also the developer thinks a developer that's not selfish thinks, what can I do that's going to enhance this neighborhood? Is my project going to be a detriment to the people that live here, or is it going to help them?
Right.
And when I say detriment, when we talk about gentrification in major urban areas, you say the developer has to ask himself, it's look in the mirror. And it goes back to ethics and integrity and morals. For the developer to say, okay, if I build these expensive houses in areas where minorities have lived on this land or lived in this zip code for the last 30, 40 years, and they're senior citizens who are living off of Medicaid, if I build these houses here and I put the prices at $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 for a townhouse or a condo, this is going to increase the property taxes for senior citizens who are living pretty much check to check on Social Security. So the developer has to look himself in the mirror and say, is what I'm doing, is it going to destroy people while helping out the upper class, or are they going to do something that's going to help both parties? So you look at DC used to be predominantly black, and they gentrified it. Where I grew up in Seattle, the black neighborhood that's adjacent to downtown, literally, black neighborhood is called the Central District. It's literally about 4 to 6 minute drive above downtown, predominantly white now. So there's also a theory that they're going to try to gentrify Baltimore. They're trying to get developers to purchase blocks of Baltimore to revitalize them. So there's nothing wrong with revitalizing an area,
right?
Especially if it was crime infested, or if it was just, if it was dirty and poverty stricken. But then it's an economics issue. If you revitalize the area, can you make an impact to be able to provide jobs for the people that live there?
Yes.
So in a lot of cases, developers aren't thinking about that. They're thinking about just getting the people out so that they can build whatever units they want and sell them.
And turn a profit.
So that's it. Right. So in that case there, sometimes crime is dispersed. When they gentrify one area, the people still have to move. So it's not necessarily a remedy on crime long term. The remedy on crime is intervention groups and try to reduce poverty. So there's a correlation between poverty and crime. So the developers have to look themselves in the mirror and say, okay, what impact am I going to have? Am I going to bring more jobs to this area? Or am I going to just run the people out and let them fend for themselves? So in the Washington, D.C. area, anything within a 4 or 5 mile radius of the D.C. border is going to be extremely high. Now, some areas, they give credits for developers who are doing affordable housing. And sometimes the state will help sponsor a developer and help fund the project. So again, anyone that's interested in doing development, to think past the money, because this can be very lucrative for a lot of people, but to be able to think past the money and think about what is going to be the impact that we're going to make on that area.
Right.
And sometimes developers make a lot of money, but it increases traffic. And sometimes it's not an increase in traffic. Sometimes it helps bring the revenue up in that area. So there's some good and there's some bad. And the developer got to weigh the pros and the cons based on his beliefs and say, okay, is this going to be worth it? Can I be able to sleep at night?
Right. So here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting in terms of what I'm hearing, especially from the perspective of a developer. You are humanizing the developer as we speak. So I really thank you for being on, because it's important that people see that oftentimes the land developer, and they're looking at the entity or the corporations who are saying it's just a corporation, and they are seen as heartless. They are not concerned with the people in the communities. They are not concerned with, like you said, the socioeconomic conditions and issues that face those communities. So we thank you for your work. We definitely want to make sure people are aware of what Rakiyah Homes is doing. And let's talk about your luxury line. It's everyone gets caught up with the excitement of luxury. So let's talk about the luxury line in conjunction with having the vision of supporting affordable housing. So it's having the best of both worlds. Would you please share with us about what that vision is, to have best of both worlds, and that it is in fact possible to do?
So, sure, no problem. So, our projects that we're working on, there's one that we are still currently in the process of trying to complete, and that one is for approximately 180 condo units and 12 townhomes. So we're trying to the intent is to make 30 to 40% of those condos. So all of them will be luxury. They're not going to all have granite, but they will have hardwood floors. They'll have nice finishes. So in many cases, when you go to a development and you'll see a group of really big houses, and there'll be smaller houses, and people would say, okay, those are the ones where the people with affordable housing are getting. So what we're doing is we're making everything uniform, so when you drive into the complex, it's going to be a gated community where you can't tell which units, they're all going to be uniform. And the way we're going to be able to pull this off is by giving the savings back that we get from the builder. Now, we are for profit, but we're giving the savings back to the savings that we get from the builder, we're giving those back to the customer.
Wow.
So, for example, when we put the bid out, so hopefully the bid goes out at the end of the year. So we put the bid out we have a construction manager, and they put the bid out for the contract. So when they put the bid out, they'll try to get the best price per square footage, but they'll ask for a bulk rate if we're going to do 180 units. So we're trying to bring the price for the square footage, we're trying to bring that down, hopefully on the mass level of units, we're trying to bring it down hopefully by $41 a square foot. $41 doesn't sound like much. It's nothing. But when you add in thousands and thousands of square footage, then that's when you'll see the difference.
Right.
Because the builder is charged by the square footage. So we're going to take those, and then also we're going to be petitioning the state for assistance for some of their funding for the affordable housing program, and it is a process, a long application process for that. So also, when people hear the word affordable housing, they automatically have a negative connotation.
Right.
You have a lot of hardworking people. You have a lot of hardworking people that live in low-income areas. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be crime-driven or people going to tear your stuff up. It doesn't necessarily mean that. You have a lot of hardworking single parents. You have a lot of immigrants who are lower class as far as income, who are striving, who are working their way up the ranks. But people have a negative connotation when you hear that. When you hear affordable housing, they think that something negative is going to happen. The environment is going to be property stricken, and people are going to break into their cars and all these other things.
Right.
So it's good. That's why it's good never to making assumptions on people.
Exactly.
So even though some of these are going to be affordable, they're still going to be nicely built, energy efficient, nice finishes, and really good material. We don't use any cheap building material or anything like that. Some developers might do that, where they say we're going to do affordable housing, let's give them the cheapest building material that we can possibly get on the market. So again, we like to keep everything uniform. So no, it doesn't make people feel funny, like, oh, my unit's smaller, because it's not going to cost me anything more to make all of these uniform.
There it is. And it's not costing you any more to make them all uniform and offer a quality of life, I think pride of ownership, to various people in different levels of classism. And it's interesting that what we can see in terms of real estate across the country is classism based on sometimes zip codes, right? A street will make a difference between a certain level of classism. And so I'm really excited that you can build a community that offers both. So we are definitely supporting, we're rooting for you. We want to definitely just stay in touch with the finished project. And how do we learn more or connect with you? I think one of the things, especially right now, what we're hearing more is people interested in buying real estate. Buying back the block has been one of the famous movements. And so as we're talking about land development and getting into some of the logistics of it, what would you say to individuals who are looking to connect into land or learning land development? Let's start there. Learning land development.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested, you can email me, and in the subject to say I can contact you from this program, so I know what it is, so I know it's not a spam or a hacker.
Right.
And I can email you the steps. The steps to land development is going to vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction, state to state, but they're going to have some basic concepts. Now, in some cases, although I put a lot of emphasis on the civil engineering, in some cases, if you're going to do a development project, you don't always need a civil engineer. Sometimes you can be okay with just the contractors and the engineer and the architect. Like if there was like for example in Baltimore, they want people to buy a whole block. If there's a row of townhouses and these are houses that are already built, more than likely they already have plumbing and electric, already have all that stuff already hooked up. They might need to be gutted out, and that's where you get a general contractor, you get an architect to do the draw out for it, and you can also try to see about getting a superintendent. It depends on the complexity of the deal, but the first thing is you want to have someone solid in your team to advise you of what construction personnel that you need, and you want to have a construction person on your team who represents you and corresponds with the construction people themselves, just to make sure that they're not screwing you over. But also, please don't forget to have an attorney involved in all these stuff. We write the contracts, because a lot of these contracts, they have a lot of legal jargon in it that most of us don't understand. We didn't go to law school, and that's okay. Most of us aren't dealing with legal terms on a day-to-day basis,
right?
Legal definitions. We'll have an attorney check it out, especially when you get to the builder. Because the contract with the builder can be easily 30 pages, and they can say one thing at the beginning and contradict themselves at the end. So, you guys want to contact me, we can go over the bank process, the finance part, and the beginning part of the development. It's a lot of steps, but it's just like following a map if you were driving. The county will have a lot of requirements, and water source is in X location, and this is what's going to take to connect it to the building or to the house that you're looking at. He also will tell you about the topographic portion of the land, meaning is the land flat? Does it have hills? The reason why that's important is because if you wanted a basement with a walkout door in the back, the hill is there for you to do it. If you want a basement that's fully underground and the land is flat, then that's perfect. Because what the civil engineer is going to do is he's going to measure the land. He's going to check the topographic portion of the land, meaning is the land flat? Does it have hills? And because he's going to sit down with you as a developer and say, what do you want to do? Do you want a basement or no basement? And he's going to see what can he do to save you money on construction.
Right.
Because if there's no hill, they got to manipulate the dirt. And the more manipulation to the land, the more it's going to cost you. So the civil engineer will go in there and say, okay, the hill is here, the hill is there. You should put this house with the basement on this portion of the land to save yourself money.
Got it.
Right. He also He also will measure the land, and when he measures the land, he'll determine the property line of that land. And the county sometimes will either have that. It's called a boundary survey. They either have that on file or not. And then also the zoning is important. The zoning says what you can or cannot build and how many you can build. And then also there's other civil engineering aspects that go into land development that he'll go through with you. And and again, he needs to be certified. Now, your architect will design the layout. Your architect is the designer. He's the artist. Don't let the engineer convince you that he's a prima donna or an artist. The engineers are technical people. They're not artists. Sometimes they get Hollywood and think, hey, I'm a designer.
Right.
But the architect is the actual designer.
Okay.
The architect is the actual designer.
All right.
These two guys need to work together. They like husband and wife. They need to work together.
Got it.
So those are one of the two most important people on your project. Now, the engineer, he will guide all the other engineers. So there's other engineers that involved in this. When you come time to build a new construction, you have mechanical, electrical, geotechnical, environmental. You don't have to worry about talking to those people. You have to see them. You let the civil engineer, you let him manage all those other people.
I love it. Mateen, we can go on and on and on. And I just want to make sure. See, didn't I say I was going to sit back as a master's student and I was going to just let you roll on in, because I just want people to hear just the terms, the concepts, the level of detail involved when we're talking about development. So I want to we're getting ready to wrap up our show. I want to just say thank you again. I want to also thank our sponsor, what the real estate gurus don't tell you, support in real estate investor and the solutionist, Thelonious Jones. He's authored this book called What Real Estate Gurus Don't Tell You, and you can check that out at gurusdon'ttellyu.com. Go out and support one of our fellow real estate investors and solutionists, because he too is also into developing and doing more for the community. So, Mateen, thank you. Should I keep your email for those who are interested, and then I will just be the channel? That way we don't kind of put you out there. I don't want you to be spammed. So for those of you who are interested, please be sure to reach out. And remember that Real Estate 100 Youth Foundation is our nonprofit organization, which the show supports 100% of the proceeds. If you have gathered or received any added value from today's show or some of the past shows or future shows, be sure to support, hit that donate button, share, invite someone, tell them about what we're doing with Real Estate 100 Youth Foundation through Ready, Set, Real Estate. Mateen, brother, I appreciate you. Thank you. And we thank you for what you're doing for our communities. And we will bring you back post-project completion.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And can I say one more really fast?
I do want you to say one more thing. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyone interested, if you have an idea for a project in your city, if anything under the sun is possible. So all you do is think about, especially if God wills it for you, think about a project that you want to do. You can email me and I'll give you my expert advice. If there's a project or if there's some land you want to develop, or if there's a block, or if there's some houses you want to turn into a condo, just tell you don't have to tell me the address. You want to keep your project confidential. You don't want people to steal it. I'll run through the whole process with you, as far as from the legal aspect to approaching the investors, to dealing with the bank, to dealing with your architect and engineer. But first, when you look at the land, think about, and you have to have patience too, but think about when you see some raw land or you see something you want to develop, is within reach. I came right off the streets and did this. No one thought that I could pull this off. But all it starts with the belief, and it also starts with the vision. That's where the base is at. And if you have that, email me. And if you have patience, where it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's not like flipping a house. Right. Because the profit levels on these are very high. So anything with a high profit level is not going to be overnight. So if anyone has an idea, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll give you our expert advice. And then also I can show you how to do a preliminary check on the land, and I'll show you how to go through the zoning and determine if the project that you're trying to do is feasible. And if the first one isn't feasible, there's tons of projects out there where you can be busy the next 30 years on projects. All right.
Great. Oh my goodness. That was a plethora of information, and we thank you, Mateen. Thank you, you guys. Please be sure to tune in next week on Ready, Set, Real Estate, and we are out.
Entry notice off.